acres of farmland, shining the light on the world. I grew up in no-name dirt roads, about to get torn up, all going down in a town you never heard of. Hey everybody, welcome to the Common Folk Podcast with Ben, Morgan, and Andy.
What's up, everybody?
All right.
It's been a minute.
Welcome to the podcast.
Right?
Yeah, it's a new year. It's a new dawn or something.
It is a new year.
2023?
Yeah.
It is kind of weird to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had to write it yet? Because that's always the problem.
I haven't, but that last basketball game I called, our sports director's like, "We'll see you next year." I mean, it's a joke that everybody has to do.
Yes.
I don't know. You're just like obligated to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So
I did write it today, and I wrote 2022, and of course had to scratch it out. But yeah, anyways.
You can just you can make that 2 into a 3.
Okay.
You know
All
what I
right.
mean?
You're right.
Just the 3 would be a little bigger, and
Right.
You could, yeah.
yeah. I've
But-
had to do that.
Then you
a
don't have to
lot.
waste a check.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm not writing checks.
Oh.
checks. What's
You
that?
are. Yeah, what's a check?
I don't know. I type checks, but
Oh, okay. So there you go. It's just not 3 of us today in here.
No.
Your better half is here.
She is. This is Ashley Classen's debut on the Common Folk Podcast.
hey, debut. Welcome to the
Debut.
podcast.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
You can see she's got a lot of pull in the Classen household because I'm converted to a part of the Bills Mafia, the Buffalo Bills fan base.
I know you guys are twinning here. It's
Mhm.
cute.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
My sports allegiance, like hardcore,
Mhm.
goes to the Huskers, and then it tears down from there. So, like, I wasn't born in Chicago. I don't have an allegiance to the Windy City. So, if the Bears are doing great, great, and if they're not, well, that's okay. Like, I'm not going to lose any sleep over that.
Yeah.
But how did you pick the Bears? I forget. Have you ever said this? Was it your dad's thing?
No, when I was really, really little, my first pack of baseball cards were actually football cards, and my favorite card in that pack, and we're talking like when I was 7 years old, was the Chicago Bear running back, and it just stuck with me, and that's what it was. I don't know.
And you never reverted
No.
to
No.
anything else.
Well, shortly thereafter that, they had a really fun team that won the Super Bowl. They were all wearing sunglasses. and they
Oh,
did
that
this-
helps.
Yeah, they did this zany song called the Super Bowl Shuffle, and they were really cool, and wearing chains, gold chains. Yeah, so I'm like, that's who I want to be like. Yeah.
I could see that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then why do you pick the Bills, Ashley?
I have family in Buffalo.
Okay.
When I was a kid, my grandpa lived there, and sometimes he'd send us things, Buffalo Bills, everything, and I've been there a few times, so it just kind of naturally
Yeah.
felt into it. Plus, when I was like a little kid, they were good, kind of. I mean,
Oh, they're
good
pretty good
good
this
at
year,
being
though.
the number one
Mhm.
loser back then, but yeah, it's really fun that so many years of being a fan since then, and they just kind of sucked, and now they're doing well, and so that's pretty neat for me.
Okay, but what about the kids? Is the house divided?
Kids don't know really yet. Like
but Ozzy,
Ozzy,
a little
It's
bit.
getting in there.
he's getting, and when we're watching football, he'll be like, "Which team are we? Are we the blue one or the red one?" And so we have to tell him, "Well, in this game we don't really care, or in this game we're gonna root for the blue team."
Yeah.
So who's going to try harder to get?
I don't know. I don't think either of us going to try real hard. And like, that's how
Uncle
my parents
Jared, you know who it's
Oh,
gonna be?
yeah,
Is
yeah.
Uncle Jared.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
were. So they're going to be
So-
Carolina Panthers fans.
Oh, so they're going to be neither.
And that's a fun blue color. So there
That's
you go.
your co-host.
Yes, Jabron.
On Where's the Line?
WTL.
Yeah. And that's been a wild ride too. We've had a couple short videos kind of go viral, and it's been fun to hear the feedback and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, and I always love it when we get the pick wrong and it's our fault. Oh my God, it's like
Well,
People
you'd think
blame
you'd know
you?
by now.
Yeah.
You spend every week buried in it. I mean, come on.
I tell people we're right half the time. What more do you want?
Right, yeah.
Jeez, come on.
Yeah,
You're like the weather guys.
we're better than the weather guys.
Okay.
I will say that.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier the Huskers, and I got this beer you gave me.
Oh yeah,
That's
that's
a pretty good one.
another microbrewery out of Nebraska here. Dear Old Nebraska Brew. That's a play on Dear Old Nebraska U, the fight song.
Yep.
Now that is something Ozzy and Kimber are on board with. They both
Huskers.
Huskers.
Yeah.
They always say, which one's the Huskers? Who are we cheering for?
Yeah.
So they do they have that down.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So they say they're the official beer of Nebraska alumni.
Mm-hmm. Kind of
Zip line in Lincoln.
kind of a workaround there, because
Mhm.
you can't be affiliated with a bunch of student athletes that aren't old enough to drink.
Yeah.
Oh,
So what do you do?
But alumni,
There you go.
they are 21 and older.
Yeah.
But it's all right for the athletes to be collecting money from everyone else under the sun and all that. But no, don't bring the beer around.
You're exactly right. And I saw a bunch of tweets today. Our big collective, that's what these groups of these millionaires, that they get into what's called a collective. And that's how they funnel money to players.
Mhm.
They've signed like a half dozen Nebraska football players. Well, duh.
Sounds about right.
So, yep.
Wonder how many of those guys own breweries
Oh,
or distributors.
I bet. I bet they got their hands in it.
Mhm.
The Ohio State coach said in the preseason, and I think he's about right, that to have a competitive team but not get in trouble, your roster you should spend about $10 million on your football roster.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
So there you go. That's just to be competitive. That's if you want to win a conference championship and have a chance at a good bowl game, 10 million is the going rate. That's
wild.
not new. That's just now it's out in the open.
Oh, okay. So no one's ever put a number on it.
Not like that. Not just transparent. Like this is what's going to take, boys.
Gotcha.
But I mean, that's been the way it's been for a while now. Everyone's known that. Yeah,
That's
Well,
crazy.
It is. It is crazy.
I mean, speaking of sports,
Oh yes, let's get into it. Right.
yeah.
So Ashley is the head volleyball coach at the local high school here. She's also a science teacher. What do you got? A major in biology, minor in chemistry.
It's a master in biology,
Oh
but
my
whatever.
God. Jeez.
Come on.
Selling her short. My
Get
God.
it right.
You're right. I forgot.
Master in curriculum and instruction, but it's
Jeez.
fine. It's
Do
whatever.
you even know her?
I forgot about I knew it was a master's if I would have thought about it.
He blacked out those
Yeah.
years. It's
Yeah.
okay. I did too.
Those were fun years.
Yeah,
It's a lot
for
of effort,
somebody.
I bet.
I don't know.
No, but there's a lot on your plate, not only on the teaching side where, I mean, you're doing anatomy, you're doing biology, obviously that's your master's, you're doing chemistry, and some of those courses get college credits now,
Yeah,
right?
AP biology can get 10 credit hours.
So, I mean, I would think that in itself would be difficult enough. Like, I wouldn't want to try and tackle anything like that. But in the last few years, you've also taken on the responsibility of being the head volleyball coach.
Yes,
So how many years was it?
this was my 4th season.
4th. Ooh.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember if it was, I don't know why I was thinking it was like 8 or something like that. No.
I did coach at the middle school for 11 years.
Okay.
So, and I was also an official for 11 years while I was doing that. But once you switch over to the high school realm, you can't really do the officiating thing anymore.
Right.
Mm.
So officiating for high school.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
So-
That has nothing to do with club.
No,
That's just another thing.
that's
on her
another
plate.
animal.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
Mhm.
So, I would like to. What are we doing here?
I just got a buzz. I was trying to see if it was that, but
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
carry on.
All right, but so like we had that conversation with Johnson Hobbs. You
Yeah.
know what is
Mhm.
coaching, and it was one of our more popular podcasts, which he was terrific.
Oh, yeah.
we
Solid.
ended up doing a couple podcasts with him over the
Yeah.
summer. So I'd kind of like to dive back into it from another angle on the female sports side of it, because there's got to be some differences there. And with Ashley, she's got the perspective of being an official and then becoming a coach. And we all know, not only in Nebraska and the Midwest, but nationwide, and it's worse on the West Coast and East Coast, there's a shortage of officials.
Sure.
And there's a lot of reasons or factors to that. So I'd like to get
Yeah.
Ashley's take on that. It was fascinating. I had a really good buddy I told you about, was back in town, Toby.
Oh, yeah.
He's been out in Las Vegas now for a few years.
That you reconnected with, right?
Yeah, yep. And he's a high school football coach. And he came from the other angle when I had never heard it before. He's like, these officials are so protected now, you can't even talk to them without them throwing a flag on you. And it's like, usually people are defending the officials. And he's coming from a coaching side where he's obviously got a few fouls,
Oh.
15-yard penalties thrown on
Yeah.
him for maybe too aggressively confronting an official.
Yeah.
And he thinks it's gone too far the other direction. And I can see that. Things always seem to go to the extreme one way or the other. So, I mean, I just think it would be good to hear from Ashley here on not only the coaching and what is coaching, but the officiating thing is what I'm really
Yeah, for sure.
fascinated with, because my dad was a 25-year official, both high school football basketball, and he did some college too.
Was he involved in education?
No,
Nope,
no,
just
just
officiating.
just officiating. Yep.
Because it
Didn't he-
seems like the coaches and the folks that you see like really heavily involved in the high school teams or whatever are also involved on the education side.
Right.
But it's not
Often.
required. Like you don't
No.
have to be a head high school coach.
It kind of depends
the
on
district?
administration
Oh.
because with our administration, my high school principal wants the head coach in the building. Like that
Okay.
is his actual preference. However, it doesn't always work out that way. So he'll be flexible on it. But he was also at the middle school when I was coaching there. And since I was a teacher at the high school, he didn't want to make me a head coach down at the middle school because I was a high school employee. He would prefer the middle school teachers to be the high school or the head coach.
Okay.
And so that was a preference. I mean, I think it is just like a preference thing.
Yeah.
And so now that I'm at the high school, and so of course I am easily selected for the head position because I am a teacher in the building. Like
Right.
that's generally the preference.
Mhm.
And when I did need a new assistant this year, I requested permission to recruit outside of the building because I knew the high school teachers and I had a specific thing in mind someone in mind that I wanted, and I had to go ask if I could ask someone outside of the building to apply because he really likes them in the building, but it's obviously not required.
Okay.
Mhm.
One of the first things that comes to mind for me, I'm just curious, and I'm not saying this is how it is. I'm asking,
Mhm.
is part of the reason for that because you're an educator, you're in the system, you're on payroll, that's already happening. So then if we have you do something extra, like you might get a little extra pay or whatever, you might have a little bit extra benefits, as opposed to if we're going to hire somebody from the outside, we can't just have that little extra that's going to go to them. That's going to be more of a full-on type pay.
Right.
So is there any of that going on?
Probably like logistics.
Budgetary type stuff?
Logistics are always there, but
Yeah.
also I think we just like to show this, like we are the high school that we are, and we are committed to our students, whether they are in the classroom or whether they are on the court or on the
Mhm.
field or whatever. So
Mhm.
it shows like an overall, these are my kids kind of ownership.
Kind of like a homegrown type
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to go about it. And I think years ago, that's how all high schools kind of had some type of a rule or regulations to
Mhm.
that. Like you had to be an educator or an administrator for that high school. And then you saw a lot of the private schools who were recruiting or whatever they were doing, but they got so much better in athletics than all the public schools. And they didn't have to have teachers as coaches. They just got the
Mhm.
best freaking coach in town.
Yeah.
Period. So then you started seeing that in Omaha and then Lincoln, where they really loosened it up. And hey, if you want to go get the best guy out there, go get him, and we'll figure the rest out. But
Mhm.
Plattsmouth is still a little old school in that they at least want that to be kind of that homegrown feel. And
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to do it. I really do.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, in
Yeah.
growing up, my dad was a coach and he ref too. So that's all I knew. He taught at the school. That's what he did.
Mhm.
So to me, that's normal. But
Mhm.
to what you're saying, I think it has becoming like with any other sport, it's more competitive. Let's bring this guy in. It doesn't really
Mhm.
matter. But I do think there's something to say for like, they're your people. We're at this school. We have, this staff doing it. There's something to say
You're
for that.
invested in the
Yeah.
kids more than just an athlete or just a
Mhm.
football player or whatever. And I've seen it a lot, especially since I've started doing a lot of games. Coaches go in and out the door that have nothing to do with campus, everyday campus life, that aren't a teacher, that aren't even a PE teacher or whatever, you know what I mean? But those guys, they can't connect with the kids. The kids don't react to them. They don't play for them. And I've seen a lot of that, especially in, the bigger cities, whether that be Omaha or Lincoln.
Mhm.
So I think there's a lot to be said for how Plattsmouth is trying to do it.
But then there's also the other side. So I wanted an assistant, but it's like, okay, who else in this building has volleyball background that's interested in this? And it's like, we
Mhm.
don't just want to, get a body to take
Yeah.
a paycheck. Like,
Yeah.
okay, hey, well, this guy down the hall,
Yeah.
the history teacher over here, he might do it with
He
me.
knows how to
but-
throw a ball, but
Right, but he couldn't tell you anything about the sport. And
Uh-huh.
so when I asked if I could maybe look outside the building, please let me go recruit some help, that I wanted someone who played volleyball in college.
Okay.
And because I wanted to bring new drills, I wanted to bring up to date info because I hadn't played I hadn't played high school volleyball since the late 90s. And
Yeah.
so it was kind of a big deal to get somebody younger than that. And I went and got an alumni. So that was also kind of a big deal too.
That's a good perspective
Yeah.
because, you have, like you said, the coach who did this and did it well when they
Mhm.
were at, in their prime.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But things have changed. Things always change.
Huge. So much different than
Yeah.
when I was in high school. And when I tell the kids, I'm like, listen, when I played volleyball in high school, we played to 15 and it wasn't rally score.
Mhm.
They were like, what do you mean it wasn't rally score?
Yeah.
I have to explain how we did it back then.
Yep. It's
And
so
rally
true.
score is just how volleyball is played. Every time the ball hits the ground, it's a point.
Yep.
But back in the day, you had to be serving to score that point. And man, games would take forever.
But you only went to
Yeah.
15.
I know.
So
Yeah, you're not going to
Yeah.
25.
I
Mhm.
know, but
There
man,
could have been a long time of back and forth, though. Like, no
Right.
point, no point, no
Some
point.
great, yeah.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
And I also
Mhm.
saw one time in Lynch, shout out Lynch, and it was a JV game, but Kimberly Black, my old babysitter, served all 15 in a row. All 15
Really?
points, smashed it on that
Boom.
set.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
You remember.
Shout out Kim Black.
Do you think do you think she listens?
Oh, I know she does.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All
Mo-
right.
Well, most people do. So.
yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
Kind of a
typical.
big deal now.
So with reffing, how did you decide to get into that? I'm curious.
That
and
was-
you doing that for 11 years?
yeah.
That is a long time.
Yes, that is a long time. It was that was a financial decision.
Okay, I was going to say, but was the
So-
money decent?
Oh, absolutely.
Reffing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Before we get into reffing, let's take a quick break,
Oh, okay.
and then we'll come back on that topic. Cool.
All right,
Okay.
it's cool.
That's great.
All right. Okay, thanks for sticking around, everyone. This break was originally intended to give a shout out to our sponsors, but as you may have picked up on in that first section, we were talking a fair amount about football. Andy and Ashley both being Bills fans, and to elaborate a little bit on that night that we recorded, after recording, we all went out to dinner, went to a sports bar, just wanted to hang out a little bit. The Bills and the Bengals were going to be playing. It's Monday Night Football, so we're going to have a fun time, have some wings, hang out a little bit. Little did we know what was going to happen, and most of you listening to this now are familiar. So we're watching the game, we're waiting on our food, and that hit happens. DeMar Hamlin gets hit pretty hard. Fairly hard. It wasn't any harder than any other hit I've seen, I guess. But from what we're hearing now, hit in just the right place at the right time, and collapses on the field. And then it's pretty evident on the screen that there's some out of the ordinary things going on. We start getting reports of CPR and the ambulance is on the field and so on and so forth. So no matter what you believe did or did not happen, that's not the point of this. What the point is to recognize the fact that this man was severely injured, and that we, from common folk, are hoping and praying that he will recover and that his family is doing okay. The second point of this, which is not a whole lot of what I'm hearing on national media and the national outlets, that we wanted to point out from a common folk perspective, is to recognize and give thanks for the first responders on the scene. I haven't heard a lot about that, and being involved in a local fire department myself, currently in EMT testing, having grown up around it, my father being a paramedic and police officer, I know what goes into that, and a lot of you listening know what goes into that. Bottom line is that everything that we know at this point, those folks saved that young man's life. They were well-trained, well-equipped, swift, and did everything they needed to do to restore his heartbeat and to get him to the closest medical facility as quickly as possible, quickly and as efficiently as possible. So while I'm seeing a lot of reports and candlelight vigils and so on and so forth for Mr. DeMar Hamlin, which I do believe are warranted. It's people caring for people. So I'm glad to see folks get behind that. I'm glad to see rival teams get behind that. But while I'm seeing that, I'm not seeing a whole lot talking about all the other things that went into that. And I just want to make sure that we made that point. Secondly, these kinds of things, injuries, heart attacks, heart failures, deaths, whatever the case may be, they happen every day. And this one happened to be nationally televised and a sports figure, that a lot of people look up to. So naturally, our people are really rallying behind it. I saw a sportscaster, a newscaster the other day, literally taking the time to say a prayer on air for DeMar Hamlin, for the NFL, for people to be able to handle this properly, to heal, and I totally agree with that. I think that was awesome to see that guy do that and take that time and make that commitment and put himself out there for that. So I'm on board with it. But what I don't understand is, again, these things happen every day. That same reporter very well may have just within the last week or two reported on some other death, the death of a police officer, the death of a firefighter, the death of one of our soldiers, overseas, just any number of things, and did not decide to say a prayer. So I think the point of this is I want to make sure that we're all on the same page here, that everyone's thinking about what really matters, and what that is life and health and happiness. And people such as DeMar Hamlin deserve that, everything that I know. And so do all of these other upstanding folks in our community that are real heroes that stick up for us every single day. So I just want to take a minute. I want to make sure everyone recognizes that I do not in any way want to discount what happened on the football field that day. These kinds of injuries and life and death are very, very serious. And many of our people listening, and us included, our children participate in these sports. It could happen to any one of them at any time, and we hope and pray that it does not. But I want to make sure that everyone's got their heads on straight and understands we should be feeling this way about so many people and so many things, giving thanks, giving prayers, lifting them up, supporting the families. It's just the right thing to do. It's the common folk thing to do. Most people listening probably don't even need to be told this. If you're listening to common folk, if you are a common folk, you probably already feel this way. I don't think there's anybody pointing it out. Maybe for good reason, maybe not. I guess we'll find out after this if people come on and blast us for this kind of thing. But I don't feel like we're saying anything negative. We're just pointing out the fact that what's going on is warranted, but folks need to also understand that this same kind of effort and energy needs to be put towards so many other things that we see in the world today, in our society, in our small towns. So anyway, that was a long-winded break there. Appreciate you hearing me out. Again, thoughts and prayers to DeMar Hamlin and his family. I haven't heard anything here in the last day or two other than he's in critical condition, but they do have vitals restored. So sounds like he's on the up and up, or on the come up anyway. So I guess that's basically all that we have. Thanks again. Let's get back to listening to Ashley and moving on to some referee speak. Okay, so getting back into refereeing and officiating, right?
Yeah. I'm just curious how it's like, why? Or you said financial.
It was all a financial decision. Reffing they pay well. They pay really, really well. And you can pretty much pick and choose what you're going to do. And like we're talking, if you did a reserve JV varsity duel one night, you're going to make a $140 check for that evening.
Okay.
So that's pretty big. And I didn't like high pressure stuff. And I told the commissioner that. So when she would give me assignments, I would not take high pressure things. So it was pretty easy for me. It's not something I loved doing. I didn't love it because it's high pressure regardless. You know, just being up on display. It's intimidating.
I bet. So you didn't want to do like state on
God,
camera.
But,
None of that.
But
I
your
did not apply
sister's
for
the
that.
opposite. We were watching TV at deer camp one time. You're like, hey, I think my sister's doing this game. And she was. She was officiating the game down at state.
Yeah, she's got thicker skin than me. I was not interested in that. I was not interested. You have to apply for districts and that sort of thing. I didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
I was ready to be done when regular season was done.
Okay.
It was for money decision.
Yeah.
And I think it's a thing that keeps you sharp. And I still do it. I still do at the Lead Center. I still do
do you?
rec league. Mhm.
Okay.
And that still pays well. I mean, one match, $20 cash.
Yeah.
So, and a match takes like 40 minutes. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still do it for that reason. And I started it for money. And it was just nice to kind of stay in. I kind of liked it in a way, but also it's stressful. It is very stressful because you're like, oh my God, what if I screw up? Or it's not like a job that you can go to and daydream or have a conversation with people. You go there and you watch a game and you're very quiet and you don't talk to people and the time doesn't pass quickly. You got to be focused and pay attention to everything.
And probably within all that too. I mean, I would imagine there's some politics in there because if you're seen chatting it up with one of the other parents or something like that,
Absolutely.
then all of a sudden, like, oh well, great. Now the ref's gonna call it for them.
Because I think that right now when I see like a ref, I'll be like, oh really? You're talking to the other
See, yeah.
team?
Right.
Like really?
Is it called a ref in volleyball?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the
Official
term.
ref, whatever.
Ref official. Okay. So so you've got that you'd have to deal with. So like you said, I mean, you got to be very middle of the road. You can't be all.
You wear black and white for a reason.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And they even have the line judges nowadays wearing black and white.
Oh, really? Huh.
They like them to wear that.
And even though, like you said, the low pressure YMCA rec ball stuff, you still got to be careful because those teams, like,
That's still their
dude,
game.
yeah.
They'll be
Still
fighting in the
competitive.
alley. Those are the ones that are probably.
and it's usually Ashley's fault.
Yeah.
Well, and it's different with each sport because I have reffed with a girl that did basketball. And I don't know anything about basketball, but she said after basketball games, like they come scoop you up and escort you to your own private room immediately afterwards because they don't want anybody talking to you, nothing. With the volleyball officials, it's a little more low key. Conversations with people and things like that, depending on, the coaches.
That's exactly what I was thinking about too when you were saying that earlier and I was going to ask you, like, if you know the difference in intensity between each sport, because we're pretty heavily involved in basketball with Joel. He loves playing. We're out watching games all the time. And I feel like almost every game someone's bitching about the ref. Almost every game.
Doesn't matter.
But I have never watched a volleyball game. I mean, I don't know that because none of our kids played, but we've definitely watched on TV, and we've been around them. And I went to them when you played. Yeah. And I never remember a single person bitching about the ref at volleyball.
I think there's fewer subjective calls in volleyball.
I think it's pretty
like everything's pretty objective. Like you either touched the net or you didn't.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are some subjective calls, like whether it was a lift or a double contact, but you've got two refs looking at each other. They're going to send signals if they thought, and you can kind of like almost converse with your eyes for a split second to decide what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And so there's, in basketball, you've got the fouls, you've got all sorts of things like that. And so I think a little more subjective calls in basketball, and that's going to get you a little more heat from excited fans.
Yeah.
For sure.
Next time you watch a high-profile basketball game, I don't care if it's college, pro, or even high school, those officials, as soon as the buzzer hits, they run. They sprint to the corner of the gym, wherever their locker room
Oh, I'm
is.
going to watch now. I never would have noticed
yeah.
that.
And
That's
it's
what
something you wouldn't
my partner
notice.
told me.
Yeah.
She said that when they're done, the minute the game's over, they would just scoop them up, and like the athletic director takes them off to
Because
their-
someone might come to them and
Yeah.
bitch to them about a call?
Unfortunately, there's been some real ugly situations across the nation with high school basketball refs. And I just saw a thing come across Facebook Reels or something where like a little league umpire rung a kid up, struck him out, and dad came out on the field and punched him. Punched the official in the face on the field.
Oh my gosh.
So, like, there's been a few instances like that in high school basketball. So, just the best way to do it, everybody on the same page. Refs, get your butts off the court.
Okay.
You know,
I could see like a soda being thrown or like food at the refs. But
we're
a
encouraged though. As an official, they were like, you go out to the parking lot together. You never go by yourself. So we were always encouraged. So when when you're getting ready to leave, it's just kind of common knowledge as you're getting your stuff packed up and the other ref is, you're both just watching each other because you're gonna walk out together, and you just
Wow.
always do that.
Huh.
Ooh, what do you got over there?
second half. Ran out a dear old Nebraska brew, so good old bush latte. Why
Get the
not?
bush.
Your blue yummies.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's that's a crazy thing. Like I've always said, and Morgan will vouch for this. When it comes to refereeing, officiating, whatever it may be, I think that's part of the game. Like I think it's
Yeah.
a necessary part of the game. Like whatever call that official made is the call that they made, and if it changed the direction of the game, it changed the direction.
Because
of the game.
he hates the instant replay stuff.
I was
Right.
gonna say, is that
Absolutely
where
hates it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's something that you should grow up understanding and getting used to, and understand that you don't get a second chance. Like it's what has happened has happened. Now make the decision and move on on how you're going to get back at it.
Oh my God! You're saying there's a human element to humans playing a human game,
Right.
Oh, geez.
Right.
Get out
Yeah.
of here. I don't-
100%.
I like
yeah.
that perspective because we don't get that in high school. That is how that goes,
It is.
and you got to rise above it. That's what
You
I
do,
preach
yep.
to my athletes. Like, hey, there's a lot of momentum in this game, and you got to rise above that. And we shouldn't be in a position where the official is determining the game.
Yep.
Ever.
Wow,
Yep.
what a grown-up thing! You guys are way off the rock. I'm gonna go on the other end here.
Yeah.
No, but like there's a huge push right now, like in the NFL, to put a sensor in the football. So as soon as that football crosses the end zone, the plane, the line, the little sensor goes off and it's a
Triggers it.
touchdown. So there's no question
Yeah.
as to whether that's a touchdown or not.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of see that, like all these blown calls, and there's one that just happened this weekend where the guy was tackled clearly in front of the end zone, but the officials who had a bad angle called it a touchdown.
Yep.
That changes the game.
Yeah.
And there I can see it a little bit more where these are the pros. This isn't learning anymore. This isn't high school.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I still like the human element of it.
And I think
You know?
I think that's just one of those things that you have to understand what you're getting yourself into when you decide that you're going to try to go to the next level and whatever else. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think you should have that crutch to fall back on of like, well, the computers will figure it out. Like, whatever. Like, I think that should be part of your plan.
Exactly, and that you took me to a place that I wanted to go to anyway. With the replay, even in volleyball now, I feel like the officiating is getting kind of lazy and not as sharp or as good because they know, hey, let's not make a call or let's just call it a touchdown. That way we can go back to replay, and if it's not, no harm, no foul. We'll just
Do you think
put it
it's
back.
for, I was thinking it's for more of the excitement and the game, like people watching it and being like, they want that numbers, for the TV. Is it?
Well, that's
Or
another,
no?
that's another thing that has stolen a lot of live sports is now that and this is the NFL, now that every single touchdown play, no matter what, is reviewed. So when an official calls a touchdown, the fans all cheer, yay! But then there's this period where we got to wait for this video to go to New York, the control center, then come back to wherever the game's at, and then the officials can officially call it a touchdown. That sucks.
Yeah.
So I think that, number one, first of all, what are these people called? We've already gone down this road. They're the official.
Right.
That means that they are the end of the line. They're the ones that make the call. It's done. Move on.
Right.
Maybe
Right,
New
that's-
York people are called officials.
I guess. Yeah, I guess.
Just saying.
Got to get in that room.
But in my opinion, that should be where the buck stops. And what has happened is these folks, used to be the end all be all. Now it doesn't matter.
No.
Like it in pro sports like that, it's kind of gotten to the point where it's like we have these people that used to do it as a career. You know, we're like full professional that's been doing it for so long, take a lot of pride in it, all these kinds of things. Well, now, I mean, why couldn't you just have some college kid do it? Because you can just review it on the thing.
Just call it a catch. Just call it a touchdown. Let it go to review.
Yeah,
You know?
it's just they've gotten so far from, I think, what it was meant to be. And there's no doubt that if you go back in history where before
Video replay.
yes,
Yeah.
that you could, with beyond the shadow of a doubt, say, man, that was a bad call. But guess what? It was.
Yeah.
And things went the way they went and move on.
There's also kind of part of the fun for me was, like a rivalry I don't care about. New York Yankees and Boston Red Sox. I hope they lose every game from here on out in baseball. I don't care about either of them. But those two teams hate each other so much, they're kind of fun to watch. And if it was a bad call, the other fan base is just quick to Twitter or quick to rah. And now, that all dies down so quick because the official call, comes down within a few minutes. But it used to be fun, and I would say if you talk to a guy from Boston or New York, that they could go back and argue. They could still argue that call, that you didn't deserve to win that game. Well, you've stolen that. You've stolen that from a fan base.
Yeah.
You've stolen that from baseball. Now, you can't go back and argue that anymore.
What this makes me think of, though, so what kind of training? I mean, is there a ton of testing and training and it makes me think of
officiating?
for officiating and I guess other sports. I mean, we don't know about that, but like how many classes and how many hours you have to keep up on stuff.
Well, it's kind of molded over the years.
It is.
When I first started, every year we had like a meeting where we'd go over the new rules and stuff. And when I was first in it, there wasn't much for training because so desperate for volleyball officials. And it was like, hey, you know the sport? Okay, let's go. We're going to practice at a scrimmage. And the commissioner is walking around and she's like helping me tweak things. Like, okay, Ashley, she touched the net. Every time she touches the net, that is a call in high school ball. That is a call. I'm like, I know. She's like, well, you didn't call it. Oh, okay.
Like, oops, okay.
Hi, I'm new here.
Yeah.
Sorry. And so there's like that, but beyond that, it is more like we're going to put you on a middle school game. That is your training. So, it kind of sucks for, middle schoolers. You're not getting like a great rep. You might be getting an absolute newbie and they're going to run this game, but that's, middle school, so it moves a little slower pace, so it's fine.
Yeah, and get over it. Learn that it is a human calling the game.
Yep. And then you upgrade to like JV and reserve tournaments on the weekend, and then eventually you're doing those big varsity games.
Okay.
And actually, it's funny because the varsity games are sometimes easier because the volleyball is cleaner.
I was just going to say it's cleaner.
And when the setter sets that ball, it's like it's either definitely she double contacted or she didn't, and so. It's kind of neat, though. Officiating has gone in a direction where they're like trying to relax a little bit on that double contact rule, so you're not trying to make as much of a subjective call because they're saying, let it go. Let them play volleyball. Call the things like net. Call the things like ball down, that sort of
That
thing.
are very
Pay attention
clear
to
calls?
the actual athleticism here. We're not going to split hairs over that setter.
Okay.
When I first started officiating, I felt like we watched the setters a lot. And that was the most stressful part, trying to determine whether that setter double contacted that ball or not.
Huh.
And it used to be like, did it spin more than twice? Okay, then call it. And then it's like, or did she better the ball? Did she make it better than her teammate who spun it towards her and she bettered it and it was still spinning but not as bad?
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Was it an athletic move? Like you can usually, I don't know, kind of tell. But it's tough.
It's getting pretty subjective there, isn't it?
Yes, it got too subjective.
And it's putting the officials kind of in harm's way there.
Uh-huh.
And some would call that, some others wouldn't. So it's kind of cool that they relax that. And
it is great because you can still play volleyball and still set the ball spinning and it still be an athletic move. I used to ref this coach. She stressed me out every time the other setter would contact the ball. This other coach would stand up and throw her fingers up, and I'm like, "No, I don't think that was a double contact. We're just gonna keep going."
Good try. Thanks.
Yeah, so it's little things like that make it kind of stressful. But
So I've never asked you, but what has been your biggest takeaway or advantage, something that you've taken from the official side, being an official, and then taking that to the coaching side, like how officials want to be treated, verbiage that you want to hear, or like words you definitely don't want to hear as a coach? You know, like what's been your biggest, I would say, advantage from being an official and now being a coach? Because there's got to be something.
I can educate my players and parents a lot better. We always have a beginning of the year meeting, and I do, where we have parents and players in there, and I do tell them, hey, I did this for 11 years. I was an official for 11 years, and I'm going to tell you some things about officiating right now. They're not going to get nicer to your team if you are screaming at them.
Imagine that, right?
Weird.
Yeah.
I always
They're
thought,
not-
But guys, it feels good sometimes being in the crowd and being like, charge. What do you mean?
oh my God.
You're not going to reverse a call, typically. I mean, it's pretty hard to reverse a call. The only ones that are going to reverse the call are the other officials on the court. If like a line judge comes up and says, hey, actually that was on the ground, you know, and then the call will get reversed. And that happens occasionally. Or maybe the up ref overrules the line judge, but I do educate my kids.
That single thing that you said right there,
Your
I've
face
said
was
100
so
times.
smiley, like, stop.
Like these parents, I mean, we've been around sports our whole life, and we've got
And I get a little more animated than
21-year-old.
him.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we've
Huh.
been
Who would
doing
guess?
this for 17, 18 years probably with
Yeah.
kids
Yeah,
going
yeah.
to sports. And that's always been the number one thing. Someone just starts hollering on the sidelines, and I'm like,
Yeah.
do you think you're going to change this? The call has been made. Shut up. And the only thing that you're doing is making them even more pissed at
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Not only are you not getting your way, you're making them more mad, so you're not going to get your way even more the next
The
time.
next call.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, I'm going to go on the other side of the fence here, okay? Because especially in college, I hung out with a rowdy bunch, right? You know,
Well, we've heard, yeah.
Toby included.
Right.
And we would go to Peru State baseball games and basketball games, and we'd have our own like little student section crowd, right? And we'd get pretty rowdy. And one of the games, it was a basketball game where Peru State was doing pretty good that year, had a pretty good squad, and a higher class team came in. And my parents were down, and we watched the first half, and I was with them. I'm like, look, guys, I gotta go with my boys here for the second half. And we got right behind the basket where they would be shooting free throws. And we were hooping and hollering about everything. And we were riding those officials like hard, you know, and just it was fun. It was fun-spirited stuff. But, you know, we were letting the officials have it. But nothing wild, nothing crazy, and a lot of cuss words or anything like that. But after the game, Dad goes, you know what? You guys did a really good job down there. That was a lot of fun. You at least got 2 or 3 calls out of that. You guys did good. That was an official who does
Really?
that level of college basketball, and he was straight up admitting that, you know, you swayed those guys a
He
couple
was
times.
influencing.
Yeah, underneath the rim. But that's different than parents.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
agreed.
at a little league game
Yes.
or something. That was more.
I was just about to say that is very different.
Yeah, way different. But so there's a time and a place for everything.
There
I
is,
guess,
because
you know?
I feel like, I mean, right. I mean, I guess I'm just thinking of basketball again. When, you know, someone touched it and the ref looks at somebody, and then
Yeah.
let's say it's my team, and I'm like, off white. Like, that might help them pick that it's off of white. If I just said,
I'll be honest. As a coach,
You would disagree?
When I'm
okay.
pacing, when I pace
Yeah.
the sideline, and ball gets hit, you know, coming from the opposing team, lands on my side of the court, and my girl lets it go out because she's watching. It's going out, and I'm a cheer. I'm a cheer no matter what it does. I get excited because maybe that line judge couldn't quite tell, but me jumping up and down on the sideline over here, maybe she's gonna put that flag up and say, "Oh, yep,
was out.
It was out. Look at this coach. She's pumped."
I think there's absolutely a piece to that.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. Oh yeah. I
You
mean,
gotta sell
I
it.
was there.
Sell
I've
it,
been there.
yeah.
Gotta sell it.
I've
A
been on
little
both
bit.
sides, and
Yeah.
I try to sell it like that. And
If you're going to sell it, for sure. But 99.9% of people do not want to get attacked and are going to immediately get defensive.
Oh, yeah.
oh, for sure.
yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but if you're out there like, oh, yeah, you know, getting, like you said, getting excited, whatever, like I've seen some of our coaches do that.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this on the podcast. Osborne, right?
Yeah.
Why
Yep.
was he so good at what he did?
Yep. And that was a article that was published in the Omaha World Herald, Nebraska's #1 newspaper for a number of years, where it was like the psychology of Dr. Tom and how he never, ever yelled at an official, but he got more calls than anyone because he was working them so hard, just being kind, being nice, respectful. But he was letting them know, like, oh man, that was a tough call there, and it didn't go our way, and I understand where you're coming from, but maybe we can get the next one. Like he would hammer that. In the fourth quarter, like Nebraska would get 10 of the next 11 calls.
Yeah.
Because he was so nice.
Exactly.
But same,
Understanding.
yeah.
Yep.
I am so good to my officials. And
You gotta be.
even if I cheer when that ball hit in on my court and they call it in, I'm like, I'll look at my girls. I'm like, I knew that was in, you guys. It was fine. Or if it was out and I thought it was out and they called it in, I just button up immediately. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'll steam and I'll look at my girls and they know how I feel about treating the officials. They understand that we don't get upset. I'm like, it's not going to change it. And I'll just look at them and be like, mentally, next point. We are going next point. We cannot focus on that point. We're not putting this game in the officials' hands. Maybe we should have gone for it if we were unsure.
I also feel like, and this will never happen, but if parents and fans would just shut up and let the coaches work with the officials, then you could kind of work your plan. Mm-hmm. So like in my example of this, and maybe you'll understand a little bit, is our current son's basketball coach. And I don't know, he probably doesn't listen to
No,
this, does
he doesn't.
Maybe he'll start listening a little.
We'll tag him.
He is way animated.
Dude's animated.
Okay.
But
Has gotten kicked out before.
Oh, my.
I mean, this kind of thing happens here and there when things get really crazy. But I think that he would be super successful. He is successful. I'm just saying I think he would be more successful if the parents would just shut up and the refs aren't getting it from the parents and from him. Like if he could just work.
I don't think us parents are that bad, honestly.
Yeah, but stuff comes
years ago.
Well, you'll just have to start listening because it is. Like 8 years ago, it was worse, sure.
Okay.
But people do get pissed. That was a horrible call. He was traveling. What?
Well, and the coach feeds off that too. The coach feeds off that too.
How come we don't? How come we're not getting any foul calls? You know? Oh, finally you called one. You know, like shit like that constantly. If people would just let the coach do their thing, they could work that court the way they want to, and they wouldn't have the additional element of the parents either making it better or worse or whatever. I think that's a huge piece.
Do you think coaches feed off parents?
It depends on the coach because I had an instance once where between sets, the officials came over to me to say, listen, your bench is about to receive a yellow card. And I said, why? Like, they're great. And they said, you've got some parents back there. I was like, oh, but I apparently, with the parents behind me like that, it was an away game, just blocked them out.
Focused on,
blocked them out completely.
Oh, you
I
didn't
had
even
no
know.
idea.
That falls on a coach to control the crowd.
I got approached about it because
An away coach?
It's not my school. It's not my school.
Exactly.
Not my AD. My AD isn't there. If we're home and we've got a home student crowd, my AD is going to take care of that. But I mean, sometimes
I just don't think that should be the responsibility of you coaching your team, but then also listening to the crowd.
Well, I know, I agree. And we usually have an administrator that comes,
Okay.
to the games. But they did approach me about it. And I just turned and looked at the parents behind me. There wasn't a lot of them. And I was like, I can't believe I didn't even notice. And so I just said, hey, knock it off. I'm like, whatever's going on back there, knock it off.
Yeah.
and I was just kind of smiling, being friendly to them. And it got better after that, apparently, because I didn't get approached again. But yeah, I have had instances where, the ref did approach me about the parents. Well, they're kind of giving me a warning.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, coach,
You're sidelined, but
you
you'd be attributed
will get
to
the
your
yellow
coach.
card.
Jeez.
I've been yellow carded. It was more of a procedural error, not because I was arguing with anything, because I don't do that. But
I can see. I mean, I could see it. Yeah, it's
Where we've seen it, or like I experienced it, and it was in high school, and we had a pretty competitive basketball team my senior year. But we had some parents that would sit right behind our bench, and they would be very vocal and like what you're talking about. And the officials might let it roll off their back, but my dad thought it affected our coach. And he started feeding off of that.
Sure.
And, looking back at that, I kind of believe my dad a little bit that our coaching staff probably would have been better not hearing the woes me type stuff and finally make the call.
Yeah.
And if you'd notice, a lot of the, not necessarily from where I was at, because we're all pretty good there, but
Right.
in my broadcasting career, it appears the parents that know the least about the game, especially the rules, are the loudest.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I hear in basketball, 3 seconds, 3 seconds. And that's a rule for a player that can't be in the lane.
Yes.
And it's just like you have 2 or 3 parents at every game that just kind of watch one player, and they have this really fast clock.
That's an easy one.
1, 2, 3, 3 seconds.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just some observations that I made over the years.
And I agree with that, because the mentality that I always have is, if you're going to sit there and yell about that and you're going to get so worked up and do all these things, then go get involved.
Oh, wow.
Go join the sidelines.
Okay.
Help out. Like, if you think you really know what all's going on here, then why don't you go do that?
Exactly. Yeah. Put yourself out
Otherwise,
there.
like for me, like, I'm not going to do it. Again, I'll go back to basketball. We're sitting there watching basketball. I'm not going to coach his team. I'm not going to get involved. I'm not a basketball player. So I'm not sitting on the sidelines yelling. If I see something I don't like, I'll grind my teeth a little bit, and I'll whisper to her, God, that was kind of a bad call. Yeah, all right, well,
right.
And we'll keep watching. And that is what it is.
Yeah.
I was affected by a student section once, and I think it was because I got like viciously protective over my team on the court there, but they were pretty rough.
They were
student
on the
section.
court. I know the game you're talking about.
They were in the playing area. They weren't on the court, but they were within 6 feet of the court, on their feet, running around on the sideline within 6 feet. And I'm like, I don't think this is okay. And when my girls would pass a ball that direction, which granted, we should have controlled the ball better, but they go chasing after it, the student section would run like right alongside of them and be barking at them.
Yeah.
I was like,
Mama Bear.
oh my
coming
God.
out.
I was not okay. I went over to between sets. I was like, and I started telling it to the down ref. I was like, this is the worst student section I've ever seen. And I was letting that down ref have it. I'm like, they can't do that. They're in the playable area.
Yeah.
We can't even have players stand in the playable area. And those are students, and they're chasing the girls who are going after a ball in play.
Jeez.
And the ref was like, oh, they're trying to get out of the way. I'm like,
Trying
they're
to
not
get out of
doing
the
a
way.
good job. And that's probably the most vocal I've gotten with an official.
You're right in that scenario for sure.
And I mean, I'm not going to get vocal unless I feel super confident about it, because I like to protect the officials.
You brought up earlier, when the referee said to you, hey, your parents are getting out of control, you're about to get carded. They expected you to have responsibility of those people behind you. You're out there at a visiting school.
Yeah.
Someone should be responsible for that group. 100%.
It was a rough
and
group.
maybe it should have been the other coach.
And the AD probably was there. So.
I heard that the AD wasn't there. I said that
But still,
AD
there's
is
gotta
just
be a
standing over
teacher
there.
or
And
something.
Someone goes, oh, that's not the AD. I was like, well, he looks like he's supposed to be in charge of these
should
people,
be
but he's
doing
not doing his job.
The referees should have gone to the coach,
Yep.
apparently.
Yeah, like they
said,
did to
"Hey."
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty rough game, and I did not enjoy that whole atmosphere. Was rough, and I'm like, great, the home team advantage. Yes, you get your student section, but this was on a level I've never complained about until then. Like this was something new for me, where they were chasing my girls and barking at them, like getting so close during the play. Like our students are not allowed on the floor. We have our bleachers, and we leave that first row open. They can put their feet on that first row and they can stand on it, but they cannot get on the floor. And I'm like, great, contain your student section and they can say anything they want to say. I don't care. But the minute they're on the floor with my girls chasing them, I turn into Mama Bear. But I was like super duper trying hard not to project that frustration to my girls. I'd call a timeout, I'd talk to them, and then that's, between the sets when I went over to the ref and kind of unloaded a little bit. And my AD said later, he's like, I knew you were talking to the refs about that student section. I'm like, oh my God, I tried so hard to keep it under control. I'm sorry.
Well, I watched, and I cut the highlight reel for you guys season long. And so I watched some of that game like, wow. Like, the ball's going that direction. And then all these boys, big football boys,
Of
were
course.
running that direction too, barking at the player trying to track that ball. And I'm like, it was a little sketchy. I'll give that.
And it's quite intimidating for a girl running
I'm
to shack.
all
get a
about
ball
the student
anyways.
section having fun.
Yeah.
Stay in the bleachers.
I mean,
Those bleachers are right there. Just stay in the bleachers, period. So then they can't go with you on the floor.
And as bad as that is, that's one of the great things about sport is there's so many different lessons that you're going to learn. So like for your team, your girls, like going through that, that sucked. Nobody got hurt, hopefully. But they left there like with a little understanding of something that they probably didn't have when they got there.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I didn't say anything about that student section until after the game was done. I couldn't bring it to a timeout.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
And that was the next point I was going to make is, you get in those scenarios, and so then they're probably watching you. How's she handling this? What is she going to do? How's she reacting? What is she saying?
Yep.
And that's what they're going to take with them.
Yeah, it's such a mental game. Such a mental game.
Yeah, and that you stayed calm.
I got to be in
cool.
it. I got to be in it the whole time. I got to treat them right. I got to, care about their mental state at all times because the minute things start going downhill, if I chew one girl out and she starts spiraling down, it could be a domino effect. Yeah. It's crazy.
And you can't show that the officials are affecting your state of mind because then it will definitely affect the players. Like it goes downhill. It really does. And they pick up on it better than you think. Like even just twitching and, making a facial expression, man, people read that.
Yeah.
People know.
Do you think, this made me think of this because we had a weird game. You weren't there that game. Joel's coach, we said was animated. This game, he just decided to just sit there, crossed his legs, and said nothing. And I remember thinking, I asked his wife, I was like, did you give him some medicine? Like, what's his problem?
Right on.
And she's like, oh, I kind of got after him after the last game. He was way too animated. So he was like, fine, I'll just sit here. So he just sat there. Do you find that, like, you coach consistently or do you coach for the game? I guess, does it, my thing was, it helped the boys at first, but then they were very confused. And even Joel was like,
he felt disengaged.
what was up with, he was like, what was up with Gunner? And I was like, well, I don't know, I guess he was just pretty chill that game. And he's like, I felt like he just didn't want to say anything. He was confused.
Yeah.
So with coaching style, do you feel that you're pretty consistent?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay.
Like to the point where my girls will like mock me.
Okay,
Like,
so they can read ya.
I had a couple bench warmers that are like, and this is where she's going to go stand over here and put her hands in her pockets. And now she's going to walk over this way and do this with her hands. And now she's tucking her bangs behind her ears. And we had a day where it was for fun, practice.
Yeah.
Players dress like coaches. There's 3 of us coaches, and they all divvied up the 3 coaches and decided who they were going to dress like. And we were like, this isn't even going to be fun. We're not even that exciting of coaches. Oh my God. They were hilarious. And they even acted like us, and all mine did their hair the way I do mine, and they would pace and cross their arms like me. And the ones we have a male coach on our team, Chase, and when they were acting like him and posing like him, they would squat down and stroke their goatee.
There you go. Like people pick up on that stuff
was
more
so
than you think.
Yes.
Funny. And it made me self-conscious about how I coach
Yeah.
because you guys notice all this, and they had it down, and they're all doing the same thing, and they're like, and this is where Classen does this. I'm like, oh my God, guys, stop! I can't have this anymore.
I didn't know that, but I think that's fantastic because consistency, especially young people, vulnerable minds will say, they need that in their life and they crave it. There's been studies done upon studies done that they crave that and they are pushed towards that.
They like it.
Yeah.
They really do.
And they can mock it and have fun with it, but that also shows just how powerful it is, where
Oh
they
my
can
God.
actually pick out what part of the game where Ashley, Coach Classen, will put her hands in her pockets or on her hips or whatever.
And they wouldn't have the confidence to joke about it like that
Right.
Exactly.
if they didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Now, and there's two sides to this too, like where your coach that you're describing was too disengaged. He went too far on the other side. Two of my favorite coaches, one on college and pro lengths, that's what he did every game. He would sit down with his legs crossed. He would let his officials, or not his officials, his assistant coaches work the officials.
Okay.
And so when he stood up to talk to the officials or to bark at his team, that meant something. That everybody was on high alert then, because I'm talking about the Bulls coach, Phil Jackson, and for the Lakers. I mean, he only has, 9 championships to his name or something like that?
Only.
There you go.
That's it.
And then the legendary coach, Tom Kropp at the University of Nebraska at Kearney. He was a professional basketball player, longtime coach, just a tremendous man, coach across the board. But he would just sit there with his legs crossed, and just let the game happen.
But that was his style, so
That
they
was his
expected
style.
it.
Yes.
Yes.
And
It's the unexpected, right?
And just like Coach Tom Osborne, it had an advantage to it because when he stood up, oh boy, and then all the officials knew, like, oh my God, he never gets worked up about anything. Now that he is up and he wants an official over there, they're quick to run over there and give him his ear. So I do think there's something to it. More than anything, just being consistent in who you are.
And there's a middle, like to what those two
Yeah.
extremes that I was saying.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Very
it just made me think of how consistent you were.
We had a game once where the bench was like super close to the sideline, and I'm like, this is my lane, man. And I was trying to,
like your pacing lane.
yeah, and I was trying to do things, but I was like right in the girls' faces, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. And so there was an open coach by my assistant. I went and sat down, and they were like, what is she doing?
Something's not right.
I'm like,
Something's
I
not
don't know.
right.
You guys, you're too close.
Like
And
my
so-
butt's in your face.
Yeah, I'm like, this is weird. And luckily at that game, we were actually winning pretty handily. So it was kind of a relaxed atmosphere. And when I would get up, they'd be like, butt's in my face. I'm like, I don't know where to go. Where do you want me to go?
But your girls don't. They use the bench. They don't stand in the corner
can't.
like in college.
You can't. In high school, you have to be seated.
Okay, because I wondered how that started in college. That was not a thing.
It is,
Obviously, I'm
in high
old,
school,
but-
even the assistant coaches have to be seated. I'm the only one that can stand, and I have a certain lane, and it is between the 10-foot line and the end line. So I cannot get in front of the 10-foot line, and I
Oh.
cannot go past the end line, and I have to be 6 feet back.
So do you
from the
stack your
court.
girls from the first chair up to the 10-foot line, so then you're not pacing in front of them?
Basically, my
Okay.
my assistant coaches take those first few chairs in front of the 10-foot line, and then they start filling in with the girls.
From there.
And the ones that go in and out a lot are up
Yeah.
there. Depending on sometimes the water cooler's at the end of the bench. So maybe someone who's going in and out is going to go sit at the end of the bench because they need to refill their water or whatever.
Yeah.
But I have a lane that I get to pace in. And since I was an official, I am very, very hyper aware of that lane. And I know not to get within 6 feet of the court. And I know I can't step behind that end line or get in front of that 10-foot line. So I just pace.
Huh.
And that's just where I've kind of gotten accustomed to doing that. And so I rarely sit down, but occasionally, like at that last game, I went and sat down, and
They
the
noticed.
girls are like, "Is she mad?" Like, what's
Exactly.
going on?
That's what Joel
Yeah.
thought. Oh, he's mad.
I think that's the other thing about like animated coaches and stuff. Like we're not talking trash about them, but we're just saying like there's
No, and
different
I
ways
would
to do
tell him
this.
this. I'll tell him to listen. Actually.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't specifically talking about him. I'm
Oh,
saying
okay.
them
But I'm just
in
saying.
general.
Yes. He's fun.
But it as a spectator, depending on where your head's at, it makes the game kind of more fun to watch because when you
Oh, yeah.
see him getting over there getting a little crazy and you're like, oh God, here we go.
Yeah.
He's about to
Yep.
do
Oh,
this
yeah.
or do that
Yeah,
or she
I've
or
had-
whatever. It gets crazy.
Parents send me pictures of me cheering on the sideline. I'm like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah.
Like I was really into that game, so I get excited when the
Yeah.
girls get excited, and I tell them that. I'm like, I'll pull them in a timeout, and be like, "You guys are boring me. You got to kick it up out there because
Yeah.
I'm not getting anything out of this game right now. You got to pick it up. Let's go."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I think it's good to have a coach that is invested emotionally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You don't want to bump on a log or a guy that's just going to sit there with his legs crossed and appear that they don't care. I think there's also that balance. So, like everything we talk about, there's a balance to it, to where you don't let yourself, as a coach, get too high. When times are good, you don't let yourself get too low when the official blows the call or whatever. You got to be able to rein it in and get excited. Show your kids, my God, you're out there to have fun. You're out there to learn. And it's a fun thing to do, play high school sports.
You're right.
So, I mean, I'm all for the animated coach. Just keep it in the rows. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. For sure. Well, man, I don't know. Was there anything else you wanted to kind of cover down that road, or?
I'm pretty good.
I know.
Yeah.
Did we miss anything, Ashley? Can you
We
think
missed a
of-
lot of things. It's fine. There's not enough time in the world to cover all this.
Yeah, I'm sure we could go.
Oh
for
my
hours.
God, I have so many things.
Yeah. Well, we've got we pretty much do this every week. So
Yeah.
it's the first week in January.
Yep.
So we got 51 more of these to do.
I got one thing.
I was just going to say that she totally should come on another two
Yeah.
or three because
This
we got
would be
a
part
lot.
one with me.
We got
Part
a lot
one?
of stuff to
Part
cover.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we talked about how she's a science teacher and chemistry and this and that, and it was brought up in a previous podcast. I had a frozen beer on me, and I didn't know until I cracked it open and
right.
it started
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
slush. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said,
Yes.
Ashley could explain this to us. So, Miss Classen, science teacher, scientist, what is going on with that? Like, why can't I have a beer that feels a little deflated, but it's not frozen? But then when I open it,
The world does want to know.
it gets slushy, and then that slush comes out, and it's a ruined beer.
I've been wondering that for the last.
Since the last podcast,
Yeah,
20-ish
please
years.
enlighten us.
It can happen to water too, believe it or not. Like a bottle of water, a bottle of soda in the back of the cooler, you pull that out and you open it. It needs some little thing.
Okay.
A speck of dust, a scratch on the inside of the container to catalyze that freezing process.
That's it?
It has been super cooled. When you pick up that beer, the beer inside of it is lower than freezing. It is lower than freezing, but it hasn't had the jump start to freeze. It can go the other way too with coffee in the microwave. I remember my chemistry professor telling me this in college. If you heat coffee in a brand new mug in the microwave, because he was telling me about someone who did this, and he was waiting for it to boil or something. I guess, I don't know. Who boils coffee in the microwave? Maybe he was going to boil tea in the microwave. I don't know. But whatever. He's trying to boil his liquid in the microwave. Brand new coffee mug, super clean. There's no speck of dust. There's no scratch. There's nothing for it to catalyze. And it's not doing it. It's not doing it. So he finally pulls it out, sticks a spoon into it to stir it, and the whole thing explodes. Shards of coffee mug all over this guy. And so it can go the other way, where it's not boiling, it's not boiling, it's not boiling.
And then it
needs
got hot.
something. It needs something to kind of trigger
like a bacteria element or what?
No, like a
I know when you say catalyze, I'm like
friction, like even just a little scratch on the inside of the bottle or a little jarring. Sometimes it won't do it until you could pull it out and maybe shake it, and it might cause it to
So
start.
like a beer, you crack the top and you're making a bunch. Well, number one, you're shoving that little flap down
Tab
in
in
there.
Yeah, that might touch it, or
Yeah.
maybe a slight pressure change.
so it's like a spark.
even
Yeah.
like
Like
a little
you're lighting
spark
it.
to ignite the whole thing, and it's going to cause that.
The freezing process needs that.
Yes.
So you can have
Yes.
liquid, even water, be below freezing temperatures and still in a liquid form.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Okay, I did not either.
Called super cooled, and you can. And another way to look at it is if you've ever made rock candy. Have you ever made rock candy?
Yes.
Okay,
With the
so
kids?
you put sugar in water and you dissolve sugar in water. And there is only a certain amount of sugar that will dissolve in water. Okay? It's a solubility thing. You can change how much sugar can dissolve in water by raising the temperature of the water. Okay? So you get the water super hot, you can dissolve more in it. Well, then you can cool the water back down to room temperature. And if you're not touching it and you're very careful, it will still hold all that dissolved sugar. Super saturated solution right there. You stick a string in it, it's going to start crystallizing on that string.
Because that gives it the little.
The little thing,
The little thing that it needs.
imperfection,
Igniter.
yes, that it
All
needs
right.
to start crystallizing on that.
Huh. Jeez.
I knew she would have an answer.
Science.
I didn't know. I didn't know we were gonna have a science lesson today.
Mind blown.
That could be a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be a fun one. Yeah, it sounds like a 3-parter at least we're gonna have.
Yes.
100%.
Awesome. Thanks
Cool.
for coming,
Yeah,
Ashley.
sure.
Yeah,
Thanks for
absolutely. I
coming
loved
up.
it.
Yeah, it's fun.
See,
This
we
was
weren't
fun.
too intimidating, were we?
Nah.
Okay, good. Now we
No.
get to go have some beers and, well, more beers.
More
Watch
the
the game.
Bills.
On
Watch
to
the
the Bills
Bills.
game.
Yes, sir.
On
Monday
to the
Night
Bills
Football or whatever it is.
Yes.
Something like that.
Holidays throw me off.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, I'm going to check us out. You guys good?
Yep.
Let's do it.
All right, peace.
All right.
Later.
We'll see you.